Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on leading vision, strategy, roadmap, and product requirements. My name's Shad. I'm a product manager at Google. I've been a product manager at Google for a long time, been in Google almost 12 years, where I mostly worked on scaling products from kind of 0.1 to 1. I worked on Chromebooks in the early days, from the first Samsung Chromebook. I moved to Google Workspace, where my main project was shutting down Google Hangouts and migrating people to Google Chat. So if you're a Hangouts user and you liked it, I'm glad you did. I apologize for shutting down your product. Um, and then I moved to the Wear OS team, where I worked on Wear OS 4, Wear OS 5, and finding ways to extend the battery life of wearable devices. And most recently, back to the Android team. So I've been very lucky to work with some incredibly smart people at Google and other companies like Fandom. And I'm very grateful to have been able to learn from them. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to share some of what I learned with you. So feel free to use the QR or the URL to connect with me over LinkedIn. And with that, let's continue on. So first, what we're going to talk about today, we are going to talk through vision, strategy, and talk a little about our product requirements, and then we'll end with some thoughts on leadership. So firstly, we're going to start with vision. I used to hate this word. It just felt like a buzzword to me, but I kind of got a little more used to it. And really, I think of what it actually is, which is the definition of where we're trying to get to. Um, and there's this phrase that's often used in corporate, which is selling the vision. The goal is to get other people to believe in it like you do. I think of the vision like the place that you're trying to get to. It's just a destination, really. And in I'm not going to use that phrase, selling the vision again, I think. Um, in telling people where you're trying to get to, you are asking for their help in getting there, and they should believe in it in the same way that you do. I think a minimum requirement for that is for you to believe in it. If you are trying to sell something that you don't believe in, you as the PM have the power and ability and really the requirement to change that vision, that description of the destination you're trying to get to a point where it does make sense to you. And then you can communicate why much more easily, but also it's just the right thing to do. One of the maybe most important aspects, I think, is when we are trying to tell people about where we're trying to get to. One of the qualities of a good vision is a clear vision. And what does clear mean? In my view, clear means that it has details in, and those details should be in the right places. What's the right places? Well, the right places is where people will ask questions. If as you read it through, and maybe you're reading the vision through in a deck, maybe you're presenting it to yourself or is walking it through yourself first. If as you're doing that, questions occur to you about, yeah, but what about this or what about that? Or if you're doing sort of a preview to maybe one or two stakeholders, and they start to ask questions about this or that, that's exactly the right place to add detail to clarify the vision. Um, and adding that detail means you are prompting the questions, or you're getting ahead of the questions, sure. But what it really means is you're communicating to people that uh, as you're sharing this destination, that you have put the time in to add in the details where needed. It just communicates that you've done your own diligence, and that's both useful and important. So we'll switch gears a little bit to talk about strategy. So strategy is really the plan for how we get to that destination. And that plan is a little lower level. It's not, it should necessarily be not as hand waving. But from a PM's perspective, you don't need to go down to here are the specific tactical details for do this and then do that and then do that. Ship this bit of code in, write a CL that does this. As a PM, you're responsible for the strategy, and your strategy is a plan for how you get there. The parts that you as a PM should be filling in are you should be specific about the goal and how you're measuring success against that goal. You should identify what any resource constraints are. So if you know in ahead of time, like, yeah, but it's going to take like a year to do this, and we don't necessarily have the time, so hence we should think about XYZ, put that in. And it may not be time or engineering resource, it may be something else. It may be, availability of compute or memory, like it could be anything. Um, Prioritize the activities here. And by that, I really mean um, two things. One, if there's things that are, I think the phrase that is often used is nice to have, or if there are things that like, yeah, it'd be great if we had that, but it's not necessary, call those out. And then for everything that is necessary, organize the work into intermediate milestones so that you can make progress from one stage to the other. And that progress is measurable at each stage, and the team can recognize the progress that the team is making. So intermediate milestones, I'm a huge proponent of, and build them into your strategy. It's unlikely that you as a PM are going to work on anything small enough that there's no need for an intermediate milestones. It's so small, you may as well just ship it. At that point, you don't necessarily really need a PM. You can just have the engineer work with some guidance, depending on the culture and the setup of your organization. But certainly, um, most of the things that you as a PM will end up working on are large, and those large things need breaking up into small pieces. Like large problems become tractable by breaking them up into pieces. And then finally, take account of external issues. So whether that's market trends, internal or external, you may be there may be like some way of thinking that's particularly in vogue right now internally that is about to change, and you as a PM should have a good sense of that and try to skate to where the puck is going. Or it could be external, whether it's regulation, whether it's competitors about to launch feature X. And that all impacts like the market itself, and taking account of that is important. Um, and then once you have all that on paper, understand what it is that you need to make things happen. Because as you share the strategy to your stakeholders, what you're really doing is you're asking them for the things you need to make this plan work. And so they need to know what you really want. You're asking for like X engineers for this time period, these specific people, this specific amount of like compute, this amount of time. In order for them to say yes, they need to know what you're really asking. And that's why that detail is important. So product requirements are a standard document that product managers own. And it really, when I say product requirements, it really means writing a PRD, product requirements document. And PRDs should probably be the very first document that's written. Everything else references it. And this is once you've like talked about the vision and that makes sense, once you've sold in the strategy, the plan for how you get to where you're going, and then it's down to like, okay, let's us understand the problem much more clearly to the point where we can actually start to write against it, to code or build. And from that point, your PODs should be the first document written. You have to include what we call critical user journeys or CUJs. What that really means is like if you imagine yourself sitting in the seat of the user, what are the things that you think they would most importantly want to do? I mean, there's going to be usually are a number of different things that a user should do. But uh, some of those will be more important than others. And all of the ones that you think are important should be written down. So write them all down and prioritize them so that when your engineering team reviews the document, they have a good sense of what you think is important um, in terms of the the flows that you think a user will go through it when using the product. Now, I'm not going to give you like an exhaustive list of what goes into a PRD. There's lots of generators around. Some of them built on various LLMs like ChatGPT or Gemini, but nonetheless, you should take a look at some of those generators, um, and use that. Probably use a few of them so you don't over-index on just one, just to get a sense for like what the headings should be, what's the checklist that I should be ticking off as I go through and ensure that all of these things are captured within my PRD. The one thing I would add here is if your PRD is too short, people won't think you've done the work. If your PRD is too long, nobody will read it. And so you've got to find the middle ground here. I think good middle ground is like 3 to 5 pages. If anything longer than that, and people are just going to skip it or wait for you to point out where there are elements in the PRD that you should read. And ideally, what you want is whether it's your eng team or your design partners working through this with you. Ideally, what you want is that they sit down and read the whole document. So try to keep it relatively short, but contain enough detail that it feels like a comprehensive document. And overall, like if you can get your eng and UX and PGM and other partners to read the doc and align with you on it, then they will see the users in the same way that you do. And that means it's much easier as you go through the build process to all be pulling in the same direction. Last, I'm going to add a few notes on leadership. Um, so I, maybe a sort of an overly strong statement, but I like to put in the idea that like leadership is bunk just to counteract the incredible amount of stuff that is written on this topic. Um, I'll give you my perspective and then some other perspectives. Um, and I'll just add that I don't know that it's that complicated. Um, I think that a lot is written about it because you can have like leaders of larger and larger and larger organizations, and so much depends on their work. I get that, but um, as a PM, I think it's good to try to keep things simple. And ultimately, I don't think it's that complicated. I'll just add like there's two things that are important for me and I think should be important for all PMs. The first is um, a PM is a leadership role. And as such, you should not sit in the peanut gallery. What I mean by that is like if you see something that is going wrong or something that you're like, it would be good if something else like that was being done better, you have the ability to go and work on it. And if you can't, then one of the skills that PMs have or should have in spades is an ability to prioritize. Then prioritize it out. You go do something that's more important, and recognize that you're doing like the right thing with your own time. Don't waste time just like flicking peanuts. And the second thing, and really it's a quote from one of my uh, favorite professors, Harry Kramer, where he tells this story about how, if you're stuck in kind of the break room and chatting with some of your colleagues and sort of somebody says, well, somebody should probably fix that. A good response is maybe we're the somebody. Now, I do think that all of that needs to be balanced with a practical understanding of what working in companies is really like. Like if you're talking about something that's way outside your remit or your area of knowledge, then there's a lot of steps to go through before like actually helping to fix the thing. And as a PM, you may decide that when you prioritize that against all the other things that you need to do with your time, of which you have not enough of, the other things would make sense. That is totally okay. Um, the only thing that I think is kind of not okay is to just um, kind of be like to spend time being critical of something that you're not helping with yourself, and really your time is better spent elsewhere. Just go do the other thing. It's super easy. Now, there's a couple of perspectives on leadership which I want to talk through. The first is my personal view, which is uh, to support everyone in doing their best work. Um, there's sometimes a view of leadership of like, oh, I'm the person at the top, but everybody else like services what I do. And in some companies, very successful companies, that is how it works and the right thing to do. I personally prefer to invert the pyramid. I'm at the bottom, and my goal is to help everyone who's in the team do their best work. And my job is to help and service them. I sort of consider my role as like a role of service for everyone that I work with. Um, there is an alternative approach which has come up in recent times called founder mode. Um, so Paul Graham wrote on it, and I think Brian Chesky mentioned it originally. He's the founder of Airbnb, still works at the company. And really, it's a uh, it's really hard to like summarize what founder mode means without sort of sounding mean. I think the best like one word definition I can think of is micromanagement. That's kind of a derogative term, and it's not necessarily a bad thing at all. If the organization is small, um, and if the culture of the company is such that the founder knows everything, or the leader in this case knows everything, and not everybody else does, and that's by design, so be it. Like that's what the company's culture is like. And for a lot of smaller companies, a lot of earlier companies, maybe that's the right thing to do. If you're a PM in one of those companies and you find yourself just getting told what to do by the founder or your relevant VP, and you don't have the scope to be able to contribute to decision making or anything like that, and you want to, um, I think that then the question is like whether that's the right place for you. It's just a question of like mutual fit. And maybe the reverse is true. Maybe you're just the kind of person who really likes taking orders and doesn't want to have to think about stuff like strategy or have to debate it, and wants the speed of execution at a single point of decision making can often get you. Um, and if you find yourself sort of stuck in like round table meetings all the time, like maybe that's not a good fit either. The way that I like to try to figure that out is identify the people around you who are doing really well by the metrics that matter to you. And if you can follow their style of behavior, then you found the right cultural fit. And if not, maybe not. And that's okay too. I would say that no one perspective is right. It's just about the right perspective for the organization that you're in. And the last thing I'll mention here is authority versus consensus. So, um, your goal in general is to find the path to execution, and you need people to do that. Um, in some cases, you will have direct authority over people who report to you. But as a PM, that's actually kind of rare. It's much more common that your team of people you work with don't report to you. And instead, you kind of need to persuade them to align with the right perspective, not necessarily your perspective. Maybe that you talk to them, they change your mind, and then you're like, okay, actually, you're right, it's this. It doesn't really matter whose perspective it is. What matters is that everyone is moving in the same direction. Um, my approach is mostly to go by consensus. I think that's probably because Google traditionally has favored that internally in its culture. but not always. If we need to move quickly, or if there's some similar crunch, I will tell people in advance that I'm going to be more prescriptive, and then I'll go do that. And that helps us get through moments where um, too much discussion would introduce too much risk into the process. Um, so really depends on what the culture is of your organization. Again, like take a look around for the people who um, are doing well by the metrics that matter to you. If you can do that, great, you're in the right place. With that, thank you all for listening, and I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, please feel free to connect with me, and yeah, best wishes to you all.